Did you know that you can read anyone's mind using just 3 simple techniques? These techniques are crucial for mastering any situation. By understanding these methods, you can easily discern what anyone is thinking. Before we dive in, if you haven't yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, I invite you to do so. This way, you'll receive notifications whenever I upload new content and won't miss out on any important updates. Let's explore a Buddhist story that will teach you how to read others' minds. The story of 2 brothers. Once upon a time, in a small village, there lived 2 brothers. The elder brother was blind and spent most of his time at home, while the younger brother worked as a farmer, laboring daily in the fields. The younger brother often found their farm destroyed by wild animals. Worried about the situation, he thought of a solution. He pondered, "Why don't I ask my blind brother to help scare away the animals from the fields? He could sit among the crops and alert us if he hears any animal noises. This way, we can protect our harvest." After contemplating this idea, the younger brother built a small hut in the field and took his elder brother there. He explained, "Brother, if you hear any animal sounds, just shout to scare them away. This will preserve our crops." The elder brother agreed to his younger brother's proposal and started sitting in the fields. Every time he heard the sound of animals, he would shout to frighten them away. They continued this routine for several days. The arrival of the king. One day, a deer darted across the field, knocking down part of the fence before fleeing. Shortly after, a king who was chasing the deer arrived at the scene. The monarch pointed at the blind brother and asked, "Have you seen a deer pass by here?" The blind brother replied, "Your Majesty, I am blind. How could I possibly see a deer? However, I can tell you that the animal which left my field does not deserve your pursuit. You are wasting your time." The king was surprised by the blind man's words and questioned how he knew this. Doubting the blind brother's honesty, the king wondered if he was truly blind, especially since he seemed to have an opinion about the value of the deer. The blind brother responded, "Your Majesty, the animal you believe is a deer is actually a pregnant doe. I have never heard of a king hunting a pregnant doe. So, I tell you, it's not worth your pursuit. You shouldn't waste your time." The king was astonished to hear this and could not comprehend how the blind man could identify the doe as pregnant. Curious, the king felt the need to verify this claim and instructed his commander, "Commander, I want that animal alive. I need to confirm whether it is indeed a pregnant doe. The blind man seems very certain, and I need to investigate. Please go and find out if she is pregnant." The commander's orders were received, and he set off. When he returned, he informed the king that the blind brother was right. The doe was indeed pregnant. The king was filled with amazement and could not understand how the blind man knew about the doe's pregnancy. Unable to figure out how a blind man could be so certain, the king questioned him further to get to the bottom of it. He expressed, "Perhaps I'm not sure if you are truly blind or not, but I've come with a question. Will you commit to providing me with the correct answer?" The blind brother affirmed, "Your Majesty, you can ask me anything you wish, and I will answer with honesty." The king's test. The king continued, "You are a perceptive individual, and it seems you possess deep knowledge of various matters. Today, I have summoned you to find out if my wife is being unfaithful to me or not." The blind brother replied, "Your Majesty, why do you pose such a question? Your marriage has endured for many years, and now such doubts arise in your mind." However, the king insisted, saying, "You must answer this question. If you do not provide a response, I will sentence you to death." Faced with the king's threat, the blind brother expressed, "Your Majesty, if you wish to know the answer, you must grant me a favor." The king asked, "What must I do?" The blind brother replied, "For this, you will have to leave me alone with your wife in a room." Initially, the king was irritated by the proposal, but he eventually accepted the request and ordered his commander to leave the blind brother and the queen alone in a room. At that moment, the blind brother expressed his desire to have physical contact with the queen. Upon hearing this, the queen became furious and attacked the blind brother with anger, using her hands, feet, and all her strength. After the altercation, the blind brother managed to escape and went straight to the king. He informed the king, "Your Majesty, your wife is not faithful." Outraged, the king drew his sword and approached the queen. stating that any lie would result in her execution. The question was about the queen's fidelity, to which she responded, "Your Majesty, you can kill me, but I am not faithful." The king felt a sense of relief upon confirming that everything the blind brother had said was true. Upon hearing this, the king immediately turned to the blind brother and inquired, "How did you know that my wife was not faithful?" The blind man responded, "Your Majesty, it is quite simple. I mentioned to your wife my desire to touch her, and she reacted with such fury that she began to beat me. Instead of refusing, she chose violence, touching my entire body in the process. Now tell me, how can a woman who acts that way be faithful?" Impressed by the blind man's wisdom, the king said, "You are very perceptive. Let's continue. Answer another question correctly, and I will set you free." The king asked, "Tell me, am I truly my father's son, or am I the son of someone else?" To this, the blind brother responded, "Your Majesty, why does this question trouble you? No matter who your parents are, you are the king of this kingdom. Let this question dissipate." However, the king insisted, "No, I want the exact answer. Otherwise, it will always torment me. I want to know the truth." The blind brother replied, "Your Majesty, I can reveal to you whose son you are right now, but first, I need your promise that you won't get angry." The king said, "I promise I won't be angry with you." Then, the blind brother revealed, "You are truly your father's son, but you are also under the influence of a miserly merchant." Upon hearing this, the king ran to his mother and asked, "Mother, please tell me the truth. Am I truly my father's son, or someone else's? If you don't tell me the truth, I will end my life right here." The king's mother replied, "Son, you are indeed your father's son, but you are also under the influence of a miserly merchant." Filled with relief, the king immediately returned to the blind brother and asked, "How did you know that the shadow of a miserly merchant was over me?" The blind man replied, "Your Majesty, I have answered many of your questions correctly, yet until now, I have not received a single penny. From this, I deduce that you are extremely miserly." The king burst into laughter and said, "Whatever you ask for, I will grant you. But tell me, how do you know what is right and what is not? How can you provide such precise and accurate answers?" The blind brother said, "Your Majesty, I am naturally blind. Without eyes, I could easily understand the thoughts of anyone. The mind has its own language, and this language is reflected in a person's body actions. By observing the eyes, lips, the way they move, and a person's activities, one can understand what is going on in their mind. Based on this, we can know anyone's thoughts. But I am blind, so I perceive through actions. If I want to know something, I have to assign a task to the next person to see how they perform it, and based on that, I can understand what is going on in their mind." The king then asked, "Does this mean that I can also understand someone's thoughts?" To this question, the blind brother replied, "Undoubtedly, you too can grasp the thoughts of anyone. But before that, you need to work on yourself. The work consists of quieting your mind and bringing it to the present. To achieve this, today I will reveal 3 very simple and accessible methods. However, Your Majesty, before delving into them, you must perform an action. Concentrate your mind. When we focus our mind and connect it with the present moment, we can understand the thoughts of others because that person is thinking in the present. It is essential to bring our minds to the present as well. Only then can we comprehend their thoughts. If we are engrossed in past events, how will we know what the other person is thinking right now? We are immersed in past events. To decipher someone's thoughts, it is essential, first and foremost, to center our minds and bring them to the present." The blind brother continued, "Now, Your Majesty, I will reveal the 3 simple ways by which you can easily understand anyone's thoughts. The 3 techniques to read minds." The blind man shared with the king, "O Majesty, the first method is to pay attention to the eyes. When we engage in a conversation with someone, the most crucial thing is to fix our gaze on their eyes. The eyes, even though they do not speak, communicate a great deal. I learned this skill from the Venerable Buddha Gautama many years ago when he said, 'Even though you cannot see, your eyes can see.' So the person in front of you reveals what they are seeing. This is the most valuable tool I have for understanding people." The king continued, What about the second technique? The blind brother replied, "The second is to observe their actions. We can discover the truth not by asking questions, but by assigning tasks. Assign them a task, and by watching how they perform, you can identify their integrity. This is the power of action." Third, pay attention to words but also observe the frequency and patterns of what they are saying. They speak one thing, but their actions and body language may tell another. This is a significant clue. But the real game lies in the gap. Look for what is not being said and how they pause or avoid certain things. From here, we learn how to fill in the blanks and connect the dots. And with these 3 rules, the king realized the deeper wisdom he could carry into his life and rule his kingdom with wisdom, discernment, and insight. The wisdom beyond words. This Buddhist story reminds us that wisdom comes not from surface observations, but from deeper reflections. It asks for stillness, presence, and the ability to pay attention to the subtle, nuanced expressions of life.